Quill Tree Books and Harper Audio present Another by Paul Tremblay. Performed by Ramon de Ocampo. For Lisa, Cole, and Emma. 1. The Beginning. The beginning isn't always obvious or easy to pinpoint, because after, when we reach back into the past, we find things had happened before the beginning. Maybe every story should come with this warning about its beginning. But let's say this story began with an antique phone and an unexpected call. 2. The phone and the call. "What the heck is that thing?" Casey Wilson asked. He had come downstairs from his bedroom to grab a fistful of pretzel sticks, or maybe goldfish crackers, and found his parents in the kitchen oohing and aahing over some weird-looking hunk of plastic with a curled, squiggly cord attached. Mom had bought it at an antique store. Dad laughed and asked Casey to guess what it was. He spied a handle on top that looked like the call symbol on a cell phone. "Is it an old-timey phone or something?" Casey asked, then opened and closed his fist 3 times. "Correct!" Mom shouted. "It's a rotary phone." It was an off-white, eggshell color, and it had the look of something that was squishy, even though it wasn't. Mom and Dad pointed out the phone's parts to 12-year-old Casey. The base was squat and rounded, reminding him of an elephant's body without the legs and head and trunk. Sitting atop the base and connected by a curly-Q cord was the handheld receiver. At each end of the receiver were 2 circular cups that held speakers, one for listening and one for talking into. Casey was able to figure out that part of it. The part he didn't know what to do with was the phone's dial. There weren't any buttons to push. Instead, there was a plastic disc attached to the front of the base. Near the outer rim of the disc were small, evenly spaced, circular holes. The holes corresponded with the numbers 0 through 9 that were printed on the phone's base. That disc thing with the holes was the dial. Mom explained that to call a number, first you had to lift the receiver off the base and listen for a droning sound she called a dial tone. Then, you had to put your fingertip into the disc hole next to the first number of the phone number. Then, with your finger, rotate the dial until you hit the finger stopper thingy. That was Dad's not helpful addition to the instructions. When you removed your finger, the dial spun back into its original starting position, and you had to do all that all over again for the next number, and the next, until you dialed all 10 digits. Much to everyone's amusement, Dad's especially, it took Casey 4 tries before he successfully dialed Mom's cell phone number correctly. But the weird old phone worked somehow. After Casey was finished with dialing, his fingers felt dusty and gritty. He jokingly asked if anyone had ever cleaned the thing in this century. About a month later, on the Wednesday morning of April vacation week, the antique house phone rang, which it shouldn't have, because the ringer switch at the rear of the base had been turned off, as far as Casey knew. When Casey had asked Mom and Dad why the weird old phone was turned off, they told him the only calls the house phone got were spam or robocalls. Not robot calls, unfortunately. Who wouldn't want to talk to a robot? When Casey had asked his parents why bother having the weird house phone if we leave the ringer off, they told him the phone was only for emergencies. When Casey had asked what kind of emergencies, his eyebrow and upper lip had twitched, and his parents sensed Casey was imagining the worst kinds of emergencies, and they told him it was nothing to worry about. But if they lost power during a rainstorm, or a cell phone tower went down, Casey had imagined red skies and giant metal towers bending, folding, and crashing to the earth. They could still make a call, because that phone didn't need electricity or cell service to work. When Casey had asked who we would call then, they'd changed the subject.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?